Mental health and addiction treatment are for everyone. People who come from a low socioeconomic status, people who are executives, people who are wanting treatment close to home, and also people who need to completely escape out of their normal day-to-day environment to be in a different setting so that they can focus on their recovery. And today we're talking about a specific niche: luxury treatment and international treatment. And we have an amazing guest for you here today on that topic. If you're asking what does it take to market a luxury behavioral health experience that's halfway around the world but worth the trip, then today's guest, Giles Fourie, director of White River Manor in South Africa, one of the world's most distinctive high-end treatment centers, which is nestled at the end of Kruger National Park. White River Manor caters to global clientele seeking not just clinical excellence, but an immersive healing environment. Giles brings deep insight into what makes international treatment attractive, how pricing transparency works in luxury care, and the delicate balance between global branding and regional realities. From navigating cultural nuances to turning a remote location into a competitive advantage, this episode explores the strategic thinking behind marketing luxury and international treatment in today's behavioral health landscape. Giles, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast today.
Yeah, Clint, thanks for having me.
So, White River Manor, one of the things that it's known for is its transparency, right? So you include pricing right on your homepage. If you go to White River Manor, what role does pricing kind of play when you're thinking about marketing and positioning?
Well, I think for us, pricing is essential. We offer an affordable service, but that is luxurious. So for us to put the pricing out front, I think is important. I think it builds trust straight away with our clients. You use the word transparency early on. And I think that's important for us. It's important for us, for our clients to know that the price they see upfront is the price they're going to get on the invoice, and that there is a thread from the beginning of what they see to what they receive to what they pay. For us, being able to offer a competitive price for our services, I think, is what makes us very attractive as well. So for us, I think it was important because also people often landed on our page and then went off straight away. And when we did some user testing as well, the assumption was, okay, well, I can't afford that. So for us to be able to see, for our clients to see the attraction, to see the luxury, and to see that it's accessible and available to them is a key step in the process of turning a client from someone who lands on our page to a successful inquiry.
Yeah, I've made the example about this before on this podcast, but if I was looking for a massage and I was looking at different websites, and when I looked for prices, it says call for pricing, I would never call those places. Why would I spend time? Nobody wants to call to just to be able to get a price. Why do we assume that behavioral health is any different, right? So it's a trust builder. It's a qualifier. It lets people know this is within my price range and that I can trust these people because they're being upfront. But let's talk about your location a little bit. Okay, so your location in South Africa, it's breathtaking, it's unique, but how do you market that as a strength while also addressing, the natural hesitations that people might have with traveling so far for care?
Well, I think, it's important. I think location is important, and it's important as a part of our treatment. I think that in Africa and in South Africa, and especially where we are, there is a different feel. A lot of our clients say that just being on the property has healing in it. And being in that environment, I think, helps people to get into a space where they can become more vulnerable and get the treatment that they so desperately need. So I think it has its challenges being in South Africa, but I think that the draw card of being near the Kruger National Park, being in such a place of such natural beauty, surrounded by nature, I think is an important part of the program we offer. Having a holistic program encompasses the mind, body, and soul. And I think environment plays a very big part in that. So yes, it is a destination rehab. And yes, there are a lot of challenges in traveling a long way. But I think also what we try to portray as well is that often it's important to remove yourself from your situation and your circumstances. Someone that's trapped in addictions, that's really struggling in their lives, is often able to gain deeper insights if they are removed from their place that, where all the trouble has started and where they come from. So we often see that sort of disconnect allows a person to really focus on their program and their treatment. But I think also the way that we've set the program up, using the surroundings and being able to go and explore the beautiful part of the country that we're living I think is attractive as well. I think going on a Kruger Park safari is not just an excursion, but it's an experience, and it's a part of treatment. It's a part of being able to try and get our clients to be in the present moment, to practice mindfulness in those sort of situations and circumstances. So we try to take advantage of it in every way that we can for the benefit of our clients in their therapeutic program.
Yeah, I think one of the key elements of good behavioral health is the bio, psycho, and social aspect, right? And part of that social aspect also includes the environment, right? Where I am, we've all been around people who either bring us down or lift us up and make us feel more happy or more energized, right? And when you are in that environment, when you're in an environment that's both beautiful and restorative, and I think something about being in nature also can make you feel small. The sublimeness of being around a great landscape reminds you that you're just a person, right? And that you're a part of this giant earth. There's something powerful. And I've heard of other people who aren't necessarily religious talk about that spiritual nature of it. And you kind of mentioned that too, that there's something spiritual about being able to connect to really the birthplace of civilization in Africa,
Sure.
right? When you're marketing luxury treatment, that's one thing, but marketing international luxury treatment is another. What are the key differences in how you craft messaging, reach audiences, or build trust across borders?
That's a good question. I think for us in that, it's been important to build relationships with people internationally. Because, we can have a great program, a great facility, fantastic therapeutic team, but it's really having professionals that trust our program, I think has been key for our international connection. So to have therapists that have sent clients from California, for example, that have had great feedback from their clients in their trip that they've been, gives us the opportunity that if we get someone who inquires from that area to say, okay, well, if you contact this therapist, you can get an objective opinion about our treatment program. The same in in Canada, United Kingdom, the Netherlands. So I think a lot of our marketing is not only digital, but it's also personal. It's creating networks and networks of professionals and referrers that trust our brand and that trust our program because they've sent people to us or they know someone who sent people to us. So I think that's been critical. But I think the most important thing that we can portray from a digital perspective is a relationship of trust and safety. I think that those are big elements. I think a safe place for people to come to is important. And that's not just from a psychological perspective, but that's from a physical perspective as well. We've got an incredible location that's really secure in a beautiful part of South Africa. And it's really just trying to build on those trust indicators about who we are in the program we offer, the success that we've had, and the fact that we have a network of people from around the world that have come to us. So we start that right from our introductory email saying that where you're inquiring from, we have got a network of people. We've got doctors that you can call for an objective opinion about our facility. So we try to not try and convince people about the program that we offer and the success rates that we have, but rather refer them to people that are objective in the situation and allow them to just reassure the potential client. So I think there's many different levels that we try to achieve that at, and it really what's going to be important for the person that's inquiring. What it is that they are looking for, I think, is what we try to pick up on early and try to build that trust with them from the beginning.
Yeah. So just want to summarize a few of the key points that you made here. One is luxury and international treatment is largely about building networks of relationships, specifically with people who refer people to a higher level of care for treatment. And it's helpful for a few reasons, right? One, it's a great way to be able to, get more people into your center, but also when those people go back to wherever they're from,
Mm.
knowing that they're able to step down into a lower level of care and there's some sort of professionals who can also refer them to continuing care, because recovery is often a journey that we know that the best outcomes happen, when someone is in some sort of support for about a year at
Mm.
least, right?
Yeah.
And that could look like a lot of things. That could look like an IOP, it could look like outpatient, it could look like support groups, right? But knowing that there's a resource local to that person if they're traveling that they can go back to after coming from White River is really powerful.
Mm.
And the other thing that you talked about is the key for safety. And when we think about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right, that pyramid that we always think about, of course, you have your food and your shelter. But what people often forget is that right above that is safety,
Mm.
that it doesn't matter what therapeutic modality you use, how great the kitchen staff or the food is, or how beautiful the environment is. If you don't feel safe,
Mm.
you're not going to be able to focus on yourself or your recovery or your healing. Is there anything else that you talked about, talking about the key things that are important to people? What are the important things that somebody who's looking for luxury treatment or international treatment talk about when considering your center?
Well, I think one of the first things that come up is privacy, confidentiality. Those are critical elements. And I think, again, if you're talking about attracting people from an international market, those are two key factors as well. People that want anonymity from the public eye, South Africa is a great destination for that because we are far removed. Privacy and confidentiality are critical, but I think the term luxury is such a broad statement as well. I think that it's changed over the years. If I look at what people were looking for 5 years ago, it was if you've got great amenities in your bedrooms, that was an attractive feature 5 years ago. But I think people really now are looking for more of a concierge service. They're looking for an experience. And I think that that's what's key for us is that we offer a luxury experience. So it's not just about having a 5-star room with great amenities and great food and having a private chef and health facilities and a gym and all of those things and a spa. But I think it's the experience that people get throughout the entire program. So it's the excursions that they go on. So for us, it's looking at every single element of our program and every single sort of touch point that our clients go through is critical in this. It's about understanding the client's desire, and we try to gain as much of that information up as we can about what their expectations are, what their goals are for treatment, and making sure that we connect them with the right therapists and that their expectations from an experience point of view are met. A lot of our clients, for example, will want to play tennis every single day, and so we make sure we get a professional coach lined up. And we've had a client now recently that wanted clarinet lessons. So luxury is not just about having a 5-star room and having a great facility. I think 5 years ago, the pictures of an infinity pool overlooking the sea was enough to sell people on. But I think nowadays, people have become far more selective and far more specific. And we're trying to keep up to date with all of those things. And for us, the concierge service is the most important thing, that every single client is an individual. They have individual needs. They have their own individual story of how they've got to where they are. But for us to be able to wrap our program around the client rather than get them to fit into a program is a part of the luxury service. Being able to call different types of therapists in different modalities, I think all adds to the luxury experience. So it's not just, okay, come in and sit down and do your AA 12-step program and you'll see X, Y, and Z. It's really how we treat the individual from the minute they arrive at the airport, and picking them up in a luxury van, bringing them to White River Manor, how they welcomed, their room being ready for them and having a welcome gift on their bed and an encouragement card every night on their bedstand. So there are so many different elements that we try to include into our client's program. And each one of those things is there to give them the experience. For us, a life-changing experience is what we want every client to go through. And, every one of our staff just smiling and greeting the clients when they see them, is all of those little pointers are essential.
One of the parallels that this makes me think about is, and bear with me because I'm going to bring it back, but a chiropractor, right? So the idea behind a chiropractor is that over time, your body has gotten out of alignment. Sometimes it's from a traumatic event, like a car wreck. Sometimes it's how you sit in your chair over time, whatever. But the idea of the chiropractor is that in order for you to get back into alignment, there has to be a counter impact,
Mm,
right? Whether it's an adjustment or your back being cracked or your neck being cracked or any of those things. And it reminds me that we change by experiences.
mm,
So, some of the reasons why we have mental health challenges or we develop addictions is because of the experiences that we have, usually in trauma, right?
mm,
Sometimes that trauma is an event, sometimes it's like a drip that takes place over time.
mm,
But if we're to overcome those things, we also need an experience. We need the counter experience.
mm.
We need people that we're interacting with, experiences that change the way that we look at the world, that make us think about things differently, that help put us back into alignment. And as you were talking about the treatment experience, I was like, that's what it reminded me of. It's like putting someone back into alignment
Mm.
by providing a really powerful counter experience to whatever has brought them there in the first place. I have kind of a interesting question about like luxury clientele in general, but when I used to work in fitness, it was really challenging sometimes to work with doctors because doctors know a lot about the body
Yeah.
and they're very health oriented. And so they would be very, and I guess rightfully so, resistant to kind of direction in some things, even if fitness wasn't their expertise. So, how do you manage people who are probably coming from a lot of success in their everyday life, especially with their career, when it comes to this often humbling environment from overcoming a mental health challenge or an addiction?
Mm. Yeah, that's another good question. I think the reality is a lot of the clients that we get are not used to hearing the word no.
Mm,
And that's where the challenge starts is understanding that there is going to be a level of resistance. And that's purely just from them coming from their own environments, powerful business people that have the entire office working around them, working to their needs and their wants is challenging. But I think that's where an experienced team really plays an important role. We have very mature therapists. Our head therapist, Dr. Magda Roll, is in her mid 70s, and it's very difficult to be in a therapeutic session with her and to hear the truth from her. I think is perhaps a little bit easier than if it was perhaps a middle-aged therapist with less experience. So she
mm,
comes with a lot of wisdom. But that doesn't mean that it's easy. It takes some time to sometimes penetrate our client and to be able to get them to a place of vulnerability. But I think that, again, that's where the way that we structured the program and where the luxury element that brings comfort. And if you put someone who's used to being in that sort of environment, in that environment, they automatically will relax a little bit more.
mm,
If they were in a more rigid, structured program that's not as comfortable, there would probably be more resistance. So I think there's so many different elements allowing our clients to keep their electronics, so they're in touch with their work life, and their family, etc. Also help you to be able to just bring down that level of resistance.
mm,
Allowing our clients to go for massages and to be able to go for lymph massages, for example, where you're just sort of regulating the nervous system,
mm,
are important elements again, because we're just trying to bring the clients down a level so that there is less resistance and that they're more open to the program, they become more vulnerable and therefore get the treatment that they so desperately need. But, I think the first part of having an experienced team is the most essential, being able
mm,
to deal with challenging clients. And our therapists enjoy it. They enjoy being challenged. They enjoy going into groups where the clients themselves get to explore where they're at and get to have their voice heard. I think is important. Those are difficult groups to manage, but it requires that experience, the wisdom, and the understanding of how to carry those sort of groups, contain those sort of groups, and make them meaningful.
mm.
So, I think there's different elements that we use, but it's from the team through the program, those challenges are overcome. And the reality is that the most encouraging part for us is that the majority of our clients are inquiring on their own behalf.
Mm.
So 95% of our clients are around about that number are inquiring because they know they need help.
Which is really unique for the industry.
Sure. So, they realize that they've come to a point. So they're not picking up the phone to us other than the fact that they know, okay, well, I need to get the help that
Yeah.
obviously I see something in my life. I've got to a point where I'm not able to carry on doing this on my own, or I can see I'm not going to overcome this alone.
Yeah.
So they're reaching out. So that's the first thing, but that doesn't mean that they automatically are going to change their personality. So, that's when the team then becomes the important factor. But yeah, as I said, using the different elements of the program as well, we're able to start to remove the barriers and the resistance, and then start to penetrate. They allow themselves, immerse themselves into the program and start to get the healing that they need.
So some takeaways is make sure that you offer a diverse amount or a diverse range of therapeutic services, but also make sure that they're top notch and super experienced, because the people who are doing this are going to have to feel very confident in whomever that they're treating, so that the client can feel safe. Also giving them autonomy so that, they're there because they want to be there. Give them autonomy so that they can be on their phone or be able to do some sort of work if they need to, so that it's not in the back of their mind constantly. And then provide other ways for them to be able to feel safe, as we mentioned earlier, to regulate their nervous system, or to be able to take care of that physical part of the biopsychosocial element, because that's also challenging. And maybe that's not something that they prioritized, especially if they've been successful in their work, which usually takes a bigger role. When I hear you talk about this, I've known you for a little while now, but I don't know why this work is important to you. Why is this work important to you?
Well, I'm almost 20 years in recovery myself. I was in the corporate industry from the age of 17. I finished school early, got straight into working for a family business. At the age of 19, left the family business, opened up my first company. By the time I was 21, I had 3 companies. And by the age of 30, I was completely burnt out, and I'd fallen into addiction. And it was one night where I reached out looking for help. I actually phoned my mother and just said to her, if I don't get help now, I'm going to die. 2 weeks later, I went into treatment. Once I'd started that journey and that process of understanding of why I got into that situation, why I felt so down, so dark, so desperate for life. And once I'd gained freedom, I never wanted to go back into the corporate world. I knew instinctively from a young age that I was meant to help people. I was always looking to try and help people wherever I could in my life, but I could never help myself. I'd read every single self-help book that there was out there, and I was a great philosopher, and I gave all my friends advice, but inside I was so empty and so lonely, I could never apply it to myself. So once I'd gone into treatment and started to fill the void that was inside me, I was just compelled to try and share that message with as many people as possible. So I effectively never left treatment. I went into a program. I stayed on. I had committed to 3 months, and I made them put it in writing that I would be able to leave after 3 months if I wanted to. And I stayed 6 months, and I was like, no, I'm enjoying this. This is great. If this is what life is about, I don't need to go anywhere. And ended up staying 9 months, and then it was a year. And in that time, I'd been working on myself. I'd started helping other people in a small capacity. I eventually became the manager of the facility that I was at. Years later, I became the managing director of the facility, and I just never looked back. So I lived a life where I never understood much. Now, I was going through life. I was sort of a passenger, if I can put it that way, of life, instead of a participant in life. And I think that when I started to work on myself, I realized that I could actually participate. I could give something of more value than just lip service because I read a book that says, if you're in this situation, you should do this. But having a lived experience, I thought I had something valuable to share. That's where it started, and that's why I carry on.
Wow, what a wild story. Going into treatment and then just staying there.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it really does shine through of why this is such a passion for you. And most people are in this industry because either they themselves or someone they know struggle with addiction or mental health, but you always wanted to help people. But first you had to figure out a way to help yourself. And in that process, you found a path to be to help other people who probably share a really similar trajectory to you, right? You build that credibility with them. You can relate to them. You've been where they are. And they can look at you now and be like, hey, whatever it is that's lighting him up, that's making him happy, I want some of that, right? I have just one or two more questions, related to this topic. Luxury often comes with expectations beyond clinical care. You've talked about the experience and the hospitality and the privacy, but how do you integrate those lifestyle elements into your messaging without losing credibility on the clinical side,
Mm.
right? Because so much of it, people think, oh, this is going to just be a vacation, but you're actually doing real clinical work. How do you balance the two?
Well, that's interesting. Over the last, I'd say, 24 months, we've moved a lot of our therapeutic program information to the front page
Mm,
and not speaking about luxury so much as showing it in photographs. And we don't need to say luxury 100 times on the front page, but we try to answer people's questions as much as possible. So
mm,
to bring the therapeutic element, to the front
mm,
and show that this is an intensive therapeutic program hosted in a very comfortable environment. So for us, it's been important to put that first and to show that there is clinical excellence, but in an environment that people are going to feel comfortable, safe, and trusted in. So that, I think, has been one of the critical steps for us, because we got a lot of feedback about that. And if there was a loved one inquiring on behalf of someone else, said, well, how do I know that they're not just going to go and lie by the pool for 28 days, So for us, it was important to show that there is this intensive therapeutic process that people are going to be taken through. Yes, they're going to have experiences, and try to explain why the excursions and the experiences are there, not just to say, okay, go on a luxury Kruger Park safari, but explain the purpose behind it, that it's about being present, it's about being mindful. Before our clients leave on excursions, we remind them about why they go. Yes, they're going to go and see amazing animals, but how do they feel when, they're out there? Are they able to smell the natural bush? Do they hear the birds chirping? What is it like when they face a lion 5 meters away from the safari vehicle? It's about, with the experience they're going through. And I think we try to portray that message as clearly as we can throughout our website. It's why people are going to have what we are offering and the purpose of it. I think it's important to get that message across.
Yeah. So you're not just trying to sell a fun ride. You're trying to say, hey, this is an experience that's done with intention, and that everything that's in here has some sort of therapeutic element that will benefit this person's well-being.
Yeah.
And therapy doesn't always look like just sitting on a couch and talking to somebody, but it's a bigger process and it has to do with experience. I love that. So you have a lot of big stuff cooking for you. When you're looking ahead, how do you see the international luxury treatment space evolving, and what marketing strategies will need to change in order to stay relevant in that space?
Yeah, I think the market is becoming saturated. If I have a look at it, when we first started 10 years ago in Europe and in South Africa, especially, there were a few luxury treatment centers. I think that they've probably increased tenfold in the last 10 years, if not more. And I think for us, it's always trying to remain relevant. It's trying to stay true to our very core about why we're doing this, I think, is the most important thing. For Janine and I, Janine's my wife and the therapeutic director, it's important that the reason why her and I are doing this is clearly portrayed, and that people are coming to a family-run program and not a corporate entity that's got 6,000 beds across however many hundred facilities, that it's very personalized, that we really care. So I think those are the elements for us that are important, and we have to just remain true to the values that we founded White River Manor on. Jerry, myself, and Janine had a very clear vision of what it is that we wanted to do, how we wanted to do it, and to keep the person at the forefront. We've had many opportunities to double the amount of beds that we have, but we've chosen to stay small and to have our staff count, very high in relation to our bed numbers, so that we can offer that personalized touch. And I think for us, it's going to be continuing to focus on that. It's how we can personalize the program more for the person, and how we can get better results for each person that comes, I think is going to be, our next challenge in how we put that across and how we get that message to the people that are looking for treatment. So yeah, that for us is the key.
I love that. So many businesses So many treatment centers is all about growing as quickly and adding as many beds as possible, as fast as they can. And they like to believe that as they scale, that the quality of their services won't suffer,
Mm.
right? But it's a real gradual process. You grow a little bit and you have to like increase quality, and it doesn't happen overnight, but it's so important, right?
Mm.
Where can people go to learn more about you and White River Manor and all the awesome work that you guys are doing?
Well, the best place is to go to the website, whiterivermanor.com. Yeah, and get in touch with us through that portal. The important thing is to know that help is out there, and that people that need help is why we do this.
I think anybody who's listened or watched this gets that from your message. Listeners, watchers, if you want to learn more about Giles or White River Manor, you'll find links for all of those things in the show notes or the description box for wherever you're listening or watching this. And remember, the better your marketing, the more people you can help. We will see you on the next episode.